Today we are going to save more than 600 euros on a reparation of a fridge for our boat, our motorhome, or even our camper van. Well, or maybe we will discover that we need a fridge if we didn't have one. Carlos, I'm sure you'll end this episode wanting a cooler for the Trastolilo.
Anything that is good for the Trastolilo is always good.
Even if it beeps, right?
The horn still doesn't beep.
Because today we are going to see how to repair a 12-volt fridge, the maintenance, the upgrades, the common problems, and how to fix everything.
Hey, the COVID thing is over, isn't it? Already okay. Yes.
Sir. Greetings sailors and welcome to a new episode of the Low Cost Sailor. In today's episode we are going to become almost expert refrigeration technicians. We are going to see how fridges work, the different options we have for bringing one on board, how to improve and optimize their performance, and finally the most common problems and how to solve them. However, rest assured that we are ready to confront the most peculiar and challenging issues one may encounter with a refrigerator, approaching them with our own innovative solutions.
It has started to ring.
Yes, do you see? The reason it functions is because I fixed it.
And now that you've fixed it, you can take the noise out of it, can't you? That's better.
Well, do you know what all of this we're going to see is thanks to? It's thanks to my terrible curse that fridges keep breaking down and 1,000 terrible things happen to me. They say you don't really appreciate things until you lose them. Having a fridge on board, whether it is on a boat or a motorhome or a camper van, doesn't seem very important until the moment you have one and get used to it all the time. There are 1,000 food alternatives you can take on board that don't need refrigeration, like canned food, pre-cooked meals from Carrefour, or the carretilla ones we talked about many episodes ago. You can even drink room temperature water and even beer, a slightly warm beer, and that's perfectly fine.
Warm beer?
Well, you can always bring ice in a camping cooler and toss a couple of ice cubes into your beer, and the problem is solved.
Putting ice in your beer. I mean, as if it were a cocktail. My goodness, what a thought.
Don't worry, we don't talk about beer anymore. Anyway, what I was saying, when I started with this boating thing and went out in the Trastolilo, we used to take a camping cooler, filling it with ice from the gas station and putting the drinks in it. More or less by mid-afternoon, you would find your drink floating inside the cooler. Even on some sailboats I've sailed on, they have an integrated cooler but not a fridge. That means everything relies on tossing ice in there, and that's it. More or less sufficient, or so I thought, but when I had my own boat with my fridge, everything was so much better. Always having cold drinks on hand, fresh food for the many days I eat on the boat, the truth is that my diet really benefited from having a fridge. Until about 2 weeks ago, my fridge stopped cooling and was just making things lukewarm. It was a real problem. It wouldn't go below 10 or 12 degrees, so I couldn't store food in it anymore, and the drinks, well, lukewarm like warm beer. It was a horrifying experience for my diet as my well-toned body deteriorated rapidly. To combat it, I had to resort to extreme exercise like Diagnosing, doing burpees non-stop to shed the excess belly fat.
Panza, 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 mileurista, mileurista, mileurista.
Or I had to become a refrigeration expert and fix the fridge.
I'm team belly all the way, huh?
Yes, what do you think I chose? Start doing burpees? Well, clearly the latter, becoming a refrigeration expert rather than doing burpees. Regardless of whether we have a fixed fridge in our boat or a portable camping cooler, there are 3 main types of refrigeration techniques for onboard fridges. The first is insulation. The most basic are coolers, which only provide insulation to maintain the temperature. They need you to put cold elements in them, like ice or freezer packs, to keep things cold. These coolers rely solely on their insulating properties to preserve the temperature inside. It's the cheapest option, but you have very little control over the temperature of the contents. It's very variable, and inevitably, they regain temperature until they match the ambient temperature. Then there are fridges with Peltier cells. There's a type of very economical camping cooler that already connects to electricity, typically to the car's cigarette lighter, and uses a cooling technology called Peltier cells. They are based on a semiconductor where, when electricity is applied, it transfers heat from one side to the other, cooling one side while heating the opposite side. With proper heat sinks and fans, this technology is used in camping fridges. However, its cooling capacity is limited, and at high temperatures it cannot lower the interior temperature significantly. This makes it less effective in very hot environments. Finally, the most powerful and efficient option is compressor fridges. These fridges normally are more expensive and heavier, but they can cool to low temperatures even in very hot conditions. This is the type of fridge we'll focus on, like the one on my boat, but there are even portable fridge models that operate on that system. In my case, when I realized I couldn't live without a refrigerator anymore and it seemed like it would take some time to fix, I turned to the people at Ecoflow to try out the ultimate in portable refrigerators, which is the kind of things they manufacture. As in previous occasions, they responded to my requests and quickly sent me their Ecoflow Glacier, a portable refrigerator with a compressor and a capacity of 38 liters. I must say, when it arrived in the box, it seemed very large to me. Although it might have something to do with how well packaged the refrigerator was. Because upon opening it top of the line, I felt like the rich, quite unlike me. The appearance alone showed it was one of the best you could have, and of course with Wi-Fi connection and mobile access from anywhere. Well, that's how Ecoflow does things. It has a 120-watt compressor that allows you to adjust the temperature between 10 degrees Celsius and minus 25 degrees Celsius. This means it can function as a fridge or a freezer, and even both at the same time, as it has a divider plate that allows you to split the interior into two sections and regulate two different temperatures, one for freezer and one for fridge. But that's not all. It also has an integrated ice cube maker, so you can prepare fantastic yacht-style drinks with it or simply have ice ready for your beer. A marvel you can take anywhere because you can add a handle and wheels. You can power it with 220 volts or 12 volts using a car charger or solar panels. It even has a battery that lets it run unplugged for up to 40 hours. So, a marvel. I didn't take long to find a place for it on the boat while fixing the built-in fridge, and of course I filled it with food, drinks and ice cream since I had never had a freezer on the boat. Ice cream. Well, although that's still not very good for my diet and my sculpted body.
The ice cream is light, it's light.
Anyway, thanks to Ecoflow, I managed to survive until I fixed the fridge, and although I've grown very fond of it, having both a freezer and a refrigerator at the same time has been great. I'm pretty convinced that this summer it will be a great help to Carlos on the Trastolillo. His father might even forget that I still haven't fixed the horn of his boat.
Well, look, I'll tell him. I'll trade the horn for the refrigerator. Let's see what he says.
Just imagine how many crab legs you can store in the fridge. He can store refrigerated and frozen crab legs for an emergency. But let's focus on the type of fridges that interest us. The most common and more importantly, the one that broke down for me, the compressor fridges. In simpler terms, their operation is straightforward and revolves around removing heat from inside the fridge to expel it outside. This is exactly the same system that is also used in air conditioning. This is achieved by changing the state of a refrigerant inside the cooling circuit. Basically, a refrigeration circuit consists of two zones, a high pressure zone and a low pressure zone. In the high pressure zone, we have a pump that compresses the superheated gas at high pressure to convert it from gas to liquid. This process takes place in the condenser on the outside of the refrigerator, and during this process a lot of heat is released and has to be dissipated into the air. The refrigerant in liquid state travels to the edge of the refrigerator where, through an expansion valve, it changes back from liquid to gas, drastically lowering its pressure. This valve is typically called a capillary tube and is a very thin tube with a hole the size of a hair where the pressure is released. That would be the low pressure zone. This expansion, which occurs in the evaporator inside the refrigerator, requires absorbing a lot of thermal energy to reduce its pressure and return to its gaseous state. And this is like when, for example, you use a spray can, the air starts to come out very cold, very cold, very cold. When the pressure of the air coming out changes, it cools down rapidly as its pressure decreases. Finally, what I've described is a closed circuit where this air is absorbed again by the compressor, repeating the cycle again and again and controlling the compressor's operation. This is the way by which we regulate the temperature inside the fridge. To achieve this, there is an electrical circuit that coordinates and regulates its operation, with several missions. The first mission is to operate the compressor motor using the 12 volts from our batteries. The second would be to stop the compressor when the desired temperature has been reached. This is done through a thermostat that closes or opens contacts depending on the temperature of the refrigerator. In addition, and to better dissipate the heat, you have to turn on the fan that helps to dissipate the heat released by the condenser. And finally, almost all of these devices come with a safety system that detects the voltage of the battery in order to protect it and stop the compressor if the battery voltage is too low, preventing causing damage to the battery. And that's it. The first upgrade I did was to replace the mechanical thermostat with a digital one. This allows me to accurately set the temperature at which I want the compressor to stop and the temperature at which I want it to start again. There are many models available. I'll leave the one I've used in the website post and in the video description, along with the connection method, which basically involves powering it with the same fridge switch and using a small 12-volt relay to control the C and T pins of the fridge circuit to connect or disconnect them based on the temperature.
You did this a long time ago, didn't you?
This was back at the beginning when the boat was first launched.
You weren't even a YouTuber when you did this.
Knowing the temperature of the fridge will greatly help you optimize its energy consumption. You can even add a $4 Wi-Fi temperature and humidity sensor inside the fridge, allowing you to check the temperature and view its evolution graph from your mobile phone anywhere you are. I think we spotted this device in episode 65, if I remember correctly. Finally, the electrical consumption of the fridge is closely related to its proper functioning, so having a battery consumption meter like the ones I have, or the one we discussed in the corresponding episode, will greatly help you detect any kind of issue you may have. And that's about it for now. When everything is going smoothly and you are looking to improve your refrigerator, you feel satisfied. However, if one day you face problems similar to mine, when my refrigerator started failing initially and cooling properly for a short time, but then got stuck, you'll know what steps to take. In such an event, with my limited knowledge, I commenced investigating the most frequently occurring issues, starting with electrical problems, which are the easiest to resolve. At least for me. The first thing is to check that the refrigerator is receiving power and that there are no issues with sulfation on the cables. Measuring the voltage with a voltmeter at the refrigerator's input and ensuring we consistently have more than 12 volts is crucial. One of the most common problems is that the cables become sulfated or are too thin, causing a significant voltage drop when the compressor is running. As a result, the refrigerator disconnects itself to protect against this. One way to eliminate this problem is as simple as connecting the fridge directly to the battery, for instance, using motor starter cables to check if the problem is resolved. This bypasses the entire electrical circuit leading to the fridge. Another very common problem is the thermostat not working, causing the compressor not to turn on. This issue is easy to rule out. You just take a cable, bypass the thermostat, and that's it. If you connect pins C and T with a small wire on the refrigerator regulator, the compressor should run continuously. If you still don't notice the compressor vibrating at any point, it could mean that the electronic regulator is faulty and needs to be replaced. Ideally, you should borrow one from another refrigerator and check by replacing it to see if it starts working, because they are not cheap. It's best to make sure that this is the problem. But if you've gone through all the tests, you feel the compressor vibrating and working, and you see that the fridge is consuming battery power but still doesn't cool enough or doesn't cool at all, then your problem is likely in the gas circuit. So I turned to a follower of the channel and refrigeration specialist Victor, who gave me very good advice on this next phase of my repair.
Hi David, how are you?
If the refrigerator cools poorly, you see that the cold stays at the beginning of the evaporator but doesn't cover the entire evaporator, and the refrigerator's consumption is below what it should be, it's likely that you're low on gas and need to replenish it. Replenishing gas is relatively easy and is done with the compressor running. You buy a bottle of gas that matches your refrigerator, in my case R134A. They are sold on Amazon with a hose and gauge for about $30, something like that. If you're lucky, you'll already have a filling valve, and it will just be a matter of removing the cap and connecting the gas bottle. If not, it comes with a valve to puncture the pipe. One important point is that you don't want anything but gas to enter the refrigerator. So the correct way to connect the bottle to the circuit would be connect the hose to the bottle. As once connected, it cannot be disconnected until the content is empty. To break the seal of the bottle, ensure the valve is closed completely, then open it slightly until you observe a small amount of gas being released. Make sure the gas is flowing and then securely connect the valve's end. By doing this, you will be able to fill the hose with gas before connecting it, thus guaranteeing that only gas enters the circuit and not any air from outside. Now, it is time to proceed with filling it up. With the compressor running and the bottle valve closed, you can see the circuit pressure on the gauge. The expected result is that this pressure stabilizes around 1 bar. You can also use the consumption as a reference. When there's not enough gas, the refrigerator will consume less than expected, and if you overfill it with gas, it will consume more than expected. If the pressure remains stable but is less than or equal to 1 bar, it is necessary to gradually adjust the valve until it reaches 1 bar of pressure. After a certain period of time, it is expected that the pressure will drop once again, requiring you to repeat the process multiple times until it eventually stabilizes at a pressure of 1 bar. If everything has gone according to plan, the evaporator should exhibit an even cooling effect, while the return tube from the evaporator should be cool to the touch but not frozen by the time it reaches the compressor. If the return tube freezes all the way back to the compressor, it means that too much gas has been added. Well, with any luck, and if you don't have a leak or it's a very small one, this should solve the problem and your refrigerator will be working again, allowing you to be happy. However, I am not fortunate like others. The absence of gas was not my problem. I discovered that the real issue was the presence of moisture in the refrigeration system. This problem is quite common, and it perfectly explained the situation I was facing. This is easy to diagnose in several ways. When the refrigerator is working properly, you will hear a hissing sound in the evaporator as the gas exits the capillary tube and expands. If that hissing sound stops and the compressor is running, it means the gas is not expanding because the capillary tube is blocked. Within the evaporator, there is a point where a slender tube regains its thickness upon reaching the entrance. By exposing this spot to heat emitted by a hairdryer for a period of 60 seconds, it will unfreeze. Should you then perceive the gas beginning to sizzle once more and witness the compressor returning to its regular consumption rate, you clearly have moisture in the circuit and it is freezing inside. If this happens, I can tell you that you are facing the most challenging issue and will need to empty the gas circuit and remove all the moisture from it. The best way to do this, within the scope of the kind of things you can do at home, is to use a vacuum pump. They are available on Amazon for about $80, but if you're lucky like me, you may have a friend who can lend you one. In my personal experience, Felipe from Puente Mar Barcos graciously lent me a vacuum pump. The pump comes with a pair of gauges and 3 hoses. Depending on whether you have a maintenance valve in the low pressure circuit or 2 valves, one in the low and one in the high, you will use 2 or 3 hoses. You'll perform the entire operation with the refrigerator running. Connect the blue hose to the low pressure valve, connect the yellow hose to the vacuum pump, and if you don't have a high pressure valve, just leave it as is. However, if you do have a valve in the high pressure circuit, connect the red hose to it. You will see the 2 pressures indicated on the 2 gauges. First, loosen the pressure pump hose and open the 2 valves on the gauges so that all the gas contained in the circuit exits outside due to its own pressure. When the vacuum pump is connected and turned on after 0 bars are reached, all the valves should be open to allow the pump to run for a duration of 40 minutes to an hour. During this time, you will observe the pressure to go negative and should remain so throughout the entire duration. I suggest thoroughly heating the entire circuit using a hairdryer, focusing on the evaporator where the capillary tube enters, as well as the outlet of the compressor where you'll notice the expansion. The latter is where the dryer filter is located, and it's important to note that this is where any accumulated moisture might be saturated with moisture. Apply a lot of heat with the hairdryer, almost to the point of burning, while the pump is running to try to extract all the moisture from there. This will help evaporate all the moisture and allow it to be absorbed by the vacuum pump. Finally, before stopping the vacuum pump, close the valves. Then it's time to refill the circuit with gas as I showed you at the beginning. If you're lucky, it should be fixed. And if you're not lucky, you might have to do it 2 or 3 times, just like I did, until you finally manage to fix it. Now you can press the button. And your refrigerator starts cooling again. And that's it, it's that easy.
Well, that seemed incredibly simple, right?
Yes, huh?
The explanations you gave me made it sound like the easiest thing in the world. Where did you say that portable refrigerator, the Ecoflow, was?
With the super comfy fridge, it's super easy. You pick it up, buy it, take it with you, put it in its place, plug it in, and that's it. The best thing I can wish for you is that your fridge doesn't break down. Because complicated is too complicated. I mean, it's a mess. Another thing is that I'm not capable of living without a fridge. To me, the fridge brings happiness on the boat. It gives me food, it gives me drinks. Cold beer, no need to add ice. Cheers to that. And the ultimate, the pinnacle, is when you have something like the Ecoflow, then you have a fridge and freezer. I won't lie to you, the Ecoflow is a beast, it's big, but as a second fridge, if I lived on a boat, I'd definitely have the main fridge and use that as a kind of freezer chest for more food, whether you're crossing the Atlantic, what have you, and on top of that, being able to decide if you want to divide it, use the large part as a freezer and the small part as a fridge, or all as a freezer, or all as a fridge, or the other way around. A refrigerator is a must on a boat, in a motorhome, or anywhere you want to live happily.
And fixing yours?
Fixing things can be challenging. There are some problems that are incredibly easy to solve, like electrical ones that you can fix effortlessly. On the other hand, issues with gas tend to be more complicated. If you have a leak and need to solder, it's best to turn to a professional. However, there are many things that can't be easily fixed. It's important to be able to identify the problem to determine if it's worth fixing it yourself or if it's better to seek professional help. Or if what you deserve is to throw it away, get yourself a portable one from Ecoflow or any other. You know what's the worst? What's the worst? That the fridge in my house has also broken down.
This is addiction. You're addicted, man.
No, but let me explain. The one at home is currently on rent. What I'm saying is they should consider buying another one. Does that make sense? Thank you so much for your attention, sailors. I sincerely hope that today's episode was enjoyable for you and that you gained a better understanding of how refrigerators and air conditioners function. If that's the case, we kindly request that you show your support by giving us a like, subscribing to our channel, and ringing the bell icon to receive notifications. And in any case, if the coronavirus doesn't prevent it again, we'll see you in a couple of weeks for a new episode of The Low Cost Sailor.
I'll take this one now, won't I?
No, my food is there.
So what? You already have the other one fixed.
However, only when I completely deplete my supply of ice cream.
Come on, let's go.